What's up to the YouTubes of the world? My name is Dylan Holvey. Welcome back to my channel. This is part 2 of how to actually be in a calorie deficit. I posted part 1, I think a couple months ago. So I'm gonna link that down below in the description for you to check out. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go ahead and watch that video and come back here, or you can just watch this one first and then go back over there. I'm not gonna reiterate the points that I made in that. I'm just gonna dive right on into this one, okay? So my next tip on how to actually be in a calorie deficit so that you can lose body fat, get in shape, become healthier, is to reduce how much snacking you do and how many bites and little tastes you have throughout the day. Now, in the first video, I talked a little bit about how you should really structure your meals for weight loss. The point that I'm making here in this video is that the majority of your calories should come from your main meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, rather than you just kind of snacking all day, getting little bits of calories here, little bits of calories there. And here's why this is important. Which of these two things you can eat do you think is gonna fill you up more? A meal that includes protein, fiber, and carbs, that's roughly 500 to 800 calories, or a bag of chips? I think you know the answer to that. The bag of chips is not gonna satisfy you at all. In fact, you're probably gonna eat it and feel hungrier after the fact than you were going into it. Whereas with the meal, because it has macronutrients that are filling you up, you leave the meal feeling satisfied, and ideally you're not super hungry for several hours thereafter, which means you got your calories in from something that's actually satisfying you. The issue with snacking all day long is you're basically getting your calories in from these random sources that don't really provide any nutrition for you. Let's say you made your kids chicken nuggets and you have a few of them off their plate because they didn't finish the whole thing. There's calories right there that you're not really paying that much attention to. The handful of pretzels or goldfish that you have in the afternoon at work. The granola bar that you eat mid-morning because you didn't really have breakfast, but you want to have something quick. These little things add up, and often we don't pay that much attention to them because they're not main meals, but they don't really satisfy us. So by the end of the day, you're left feeling famished because you got the majority of your nutrition in from just little snacks that you don't really want to prioritize, okay? So if you focus on getting the majority of your calories in from your main meals, depending on your calorie goal for the day, it might be anywhere between about 500 to 800 calories a meal. It's gonna really help you mitigate hunger. Like I mentioned in the first video, you're never gonna completely get rid of hunger altogether when you're in a calorie deficit, but if we can minimize it, the whole process of being in a calorie deficit is gonna suck less. It's always not gonna be the most fun thing in the world, but it's gonna suck less. So minimize snacking and get the majority of your calories in from main meals. And a lot of people struggle with this because in their head, they're thinking, if I'm getting a 700 calorie lunch in, well, I'm probably gonna gain weight because that's a lot of food. Whereas if I just don't eat that much, I'm probably gonna end up in a calorie deficit, which means I'm gonna lose more weight. And again, it's one of those situations where in theory that might make sense. The problem is in the real world, if you're not eating that much during the day, the hunger catches up to you at night. Another way of looking at it is if you don't eat that much during the work week, that hunger catches up to you over the weekend and then you end up going off the rails. So we wanna get ahead of that hunger as much as possible, and the best way to do that, bar none, is getting the majority of your nutrition in breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And if you do decide to eat snacks, which again, I'm recommending that you mitigate, but if you have any snacks, I either recommend it's a protein source like a protein shake, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or a piece of fruit like an apple, a banana, a bowl of berries, or veggies like baby carrots, or maybe cut up cucumber or cut up bell peppers. That way, even if you are snacking on something, again, you want to minimize it, but even if you are snacking on something, it's not really that high calorie, and in fact, you might get more fiber in and more protein in from it, which will help fill you up even more. Now, my second tip for how to actually be in a calorie deficit is, well, you'll see here in a minute. Not a minute, you're gonna see right now. Okay, the second way to actually be in a calorie deficit is to increase your step count. Now, you probably see on social media all the time that you should get 10,000 steps a day, 10,000 steps a day. That's the magic number. Everybody and their mother's always posting that, but do you need to get that many steps? How many steps should you be getting? Well, let's chat about it so I can tell you the truth and let you know why getting more movement in is so important for fat loss. All right, so to talk a little bit about why steps are so important, I'm here with my beautiful dog, Bella. She's a 7-year-old golden retriever. I love her to death. She's truly my best friend. And Bella loves going on walks. It's her favorite thing to do every single day. So I think her and I can talk to you a little bit about why it's so important to get more movement in, and specifically why it helps with fat loss. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about why people talk so much about 10,000 steps specifically. That number actually became a thing back in the early 1960s as part of a marketing campaign for a Japanese company that was selling pedometers. And basically they came up with that number as a way to sell more of them, a round number that would stick in people's mind. But there wasn't any specific rhyme or reason why 10,000 steps specifically was the goal. Now, since then, there's been more research done on why walking and getting more movement in is so critical and important for longevity. In fact, there was a recent meta-analysis that came out that showed for every additional 1,000 steps you get, you decrease your risk of all-cause mortality. And that just means death by any means. So basically, the more movement you get, the longer you live and the better your quality of life is as you get older. And it seems as though the benefits of this are consistent up to about 16,000 steps a day. Anything beyond that, you don't really get any additional health benefits, especially since it might take away from other aspects of your life. If you're walking all day long, you might not be able to focus on other things like strength training, so it might be a little bit counterproductive. But if you're someone who's getting anywhere between about 7,000 to 15,000 steps a day, you're in a great spot for not only helping with fat loss, but also improving the quality of your life and helping you actually live longer, which is pretty amazing, isn't it? Now, here's why steps are so important for fat loss specifically. I talk a lot about how your calorie deficit is created through nutrition, and I stand by that 100%. However, the more tools we can have in our toolbox to help us actually be in that deficit, the better. And when you increase your steps, what you're essentially doing is you're increasing your calorie burn throughout the day, specifically through something that's pretty easy to do. I mean, going for more walks, getting more movement in is not the hardest thing to do in the world. It's a lot harder to get a strength training workout in than it is to go for a walk outside. So it's a way to get more exercise in a way that doesn't really get in the way of your day-to-day life that much. I'm not big on calculating how many calories you're burning through exercise. However, if you want to think about it that way, you're probably burning about 5 calories a minute for every minute that you're walking. And so if you get an additional 60 minutes of walking in every single day, you could potentially burn up to about 300 more calories than you would have had you not gotten that movement in. And that's pretty significant for helping you be in a calorie deficit because it just gives you a little bit more wiggle room so that you don't have to be as rigid with your nutrition. But again, I have to give that caveat of you can't use this to mask poor nutrition. So just because it helps you be in a calorie deficit, it doesn't mean that you can just eat whatever you want and as long as you walk as much as possible, you're gonna lose weight. Think of this as something that can supplement good nutrition and you're just adding to what you're already doing rather than being the thing that actually creates the deficit to begin with. You create your deficit through good nutrition and then you can use more steps as a way to either increase your deficit a little bit more so your rate of progress can actually increase a bit, or it can make up for, in a small way, some of the hiccups in your nutrition throughout the week, right? Not everything's always gonna be perfect. You're gonna have days where you go over your calories a little bit. And so by getting more movement in, you're kind of compensating for a few hundred calories here or there that you might be eating extra that now you're burning through additional movement. And I've just seen a commonality through all of my in-person and one-on-one online coaching clients that the clients who lose the most amount of weight and who actually keep it off are the ones who get the most amount of daily movement in by getting more steps. So it's incredibly important for fat loss and longevity. My biggest recommendation, if you're someone that's never really prioritized this before, is just to do more than you're currently doing. So if you're averaging 3,500 steps a day, your initial goal should be increasing that by about 1,000. And then you can slowly build from there until maybe you get to around 10,000 steps a day. Even though it's not a magical number and there's nothing that specific number is gonna do for you in terms of, torching the fat away. But if you slowly increase how many steps you're getting more of those health benefits for longevity and you're increasing your calorie burn in a way that's not really gonna inconvenience you that much in your day-to-day life. And Bella agrees. Right, Belle? Right, Belle? Don't you think they should get more steps in? She's just lounging. I wish I had her life. All right, the third and final point that I wanna make in this video is one of the best ways to consistently be in a calorie deficit is to get more sleep and get more high quality sleep. Now, this is one of those tips that you're like, Dylan, everybody is always talking about this. I know I need to get more sleep. This is the kind of thing that goes over people's head. They hear it, but they don't really internalize why it's so important. So I want to give you two main reasons why sleep is more important for fat loss than you might think. So far, a big theme in these videos has been mitigating hunger. It's pretty obvious. You want to be not hungry when you're trying to lose weight. One of the best ways to do that is to consistently get as close to 7 hours of sleep as possible. And the reason why this is so important is because there are two hunger-related hormones in our body that are regulated when we sleep. One's called leptin and one is called ghrelin. Leptin is what makes you feel very full. Ghrelin is what makes you feel very hungry. When you're getting really good high-quality sleep, leptin levels are high and ghrelin levels are low, which is what we want. That means fullness is high and hunger is low. When you're consistently getting less than about 7 hours of sleep, ghrelin levels are high and leptin levels are low, which means you're left feeling very hungry and you're just kind of thinking about food all the time. And so what happens is when you don't get enough sleep, because you're not getting that natural energy from a good night's rest, your body is looking for that energy from external sources. And so hunger is going to go up and cravings are going to go up because your body wants quick, easy to digest sources of calories. Think carbs, specifically sugar. It's a very quick, easy to digest food, which means you're going to start craving a little bit more of it because your body wants that energy that it's not getting from your sleep. The second reason why sleep is so important is because when you say you want to lose weight, what you're really saying is that you want to maximize fat loss and minimize muscle loss, because it's not just about what the number on the scale says. Everybody thinks that they want this specific number that they've had in their head. I want to weigh what I weighed back in high school or college. And like, yeah, it's great to see the number on the scale move down, and it will if you're in a fat loss phase, but what's more important than what you weigh is how you look and how you feel. And a big part of that is having less fat on your frame, but maintaining muscle that you have and even potentially building a little bit of muscle in the process. And when you don't get enough sleep, what happens is when you're in that calorie deficit, a higher proportion of the weight loss comes from muscle rather than fat. That's not what you want. You want as much of that weight loss to come from fat mass as possible so that you can get more of that toned, defined look as you lose weight. And the reason why sleep plays such a big role in this is it's the main time that we're recovering from our workouts. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you're not properly recovering in between sessions, which means when you have that muscle breakdown happening in your weightlifting workouts, you're not really giving your muscles the sufficient amount of time that they need to fully recover, which means when you're in an energy deficit, when you eat less than your body needs to maintain its weight, your body's gonna draw on muscle tissue rather than just drawing on fat tissue, which is not ideal at all when you're trying to lose weight and improve your body composition. So my main tip when it comes to getting sleep is, you've heard it from everybody, trying to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night. That's not feasible for everybody, especially for someone that maybe you're a new parent, you have some young kids at home. What I'm saying right now doesn't really apply to you in this stage of your life, but when your kids get a little bit older, you're probably gonna wanna get back to a more normal eating schedule, so it will apply someday. But my biggest tip for pretty much everybody is, and this is very practical, try to go to bed 30 minutes earlier than you currently do. It's hard to sleep in more in the morning because most of us have to get up early for work, and that's kind of set. There's a set time you gotta get up, whether it's 5 a.m., 5:36, but you probably can go to bed a little bit earlier. A lot of us are watching Netflix at night, Hulu, maybe you're scrolling on TikTok till 2 a.m. That's not good for sleep. It's minimizing how much sleep you get. It's also sacrificing the quality of your sleep once you actually do go to bed. But if you just make an effort to go to bed 30 minutes earlier, it's the kind of a step in the right direction to increase the amount of sleep you get. So if right now you're going to bed at 12 and you wake up at 5, if you can go to bed at 11:30, now you're going from 5 hours of sleep to 5.5, and it might not seem significant, and eventually you want to work up closer to that 7 range, but 5.5 is better than 5. And I guarantee you, if you start prioritizing getting more sleep, your cravings are going to go down precipitously. So there you have it, 3 more tips on how to actually be in a calorie deficit. If you want me to make another video in this series, I'm happy to, but you gotta let me know because this is all for you guys, okay? So make sure to hit that thumbs up if you got value from this video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already, because I'm gonna continue to pump out more videos. And as always, I will see you in the next one.